Good evening, everyone. Council's Subcommittee on Rules, Ethics, and Ordinances comes to order. In attendance, we have Mary Kate Feeney in person and Tracy Bryant remotely, and myself, John Stefanini, as chair. We have 4 items on our agenda tonight. We have a discussion of the ethics ruling on special municipal employees designation. We have a discussion of our welcoming ordinance and all of the things that that entails. It's an open-ended conversation, intentionally so, because we're using the opportunity to review our welcoming ordinance and our policies and procedures, which we adopted a few years ago. And then we have a discussion of adopting and changing our budget process and updates to our rules. So, with that, we have a public comment at the beginning of our meetings, but the public comment is designed for things that are not on our agenda. If you're here to talk about something on the agenda, please wait until that comes up. We are a little less formal than the council. We encourage engagement. Just please be respectful of everyone and give everyone a chance to have an opportunity to speak. With that, is there anyone who'd like to participate on something that is not on our agenda? First item on the agenda is a discussion relative to special municipal employees. Some municipalities adopt a section of the ethics statute that allows designation of special municipal employees so they don't have a conflict of interest if they also in their full-time lives do something else, if they're on the cultural council, et cetera. So for example, if you're on the cultural council, you cannot be somebody who does business with the city of Framingham. We got a note from the solicitor that just made some corrections, adjustments to the ordinance, but no discussion. Any discussion from the public? Any discussion from the committee? Yes.
Has there been any recent examples of this that should cause us to think more about having the special employee status for everybody else? I see, the Board of License Commissioners, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and ZBA will not be part of this, but are there any other conflicts that have happened in the past?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's the kind of thing that people don't pay attention to. So we recently had a member of the zoning board who was an architect who was doing business in Framingham and did not realize that he could not do business in Framingham as an architect and be a member of the zoning board of appeals. It's a conflict of interest. You can't represent both another party and the city. And that wouldn't change under this, but that's the most recent example I can think of. There are people who serve in Framingham who are professionals that are accountants, lawyers, landscape architects, and they would be prohibited from doing business for Framingham if, in fact, they do that. I think this, at this point, is largely hypothetical.
Okay. And do you feel comfortable with just the ones that have already been highlighted as not being part of this classification? I
do. I think those are the ones that have real estate interests and financial interests. I don't think it's such a big issue for the bicycle safety, cultural. Some of those committees, while they may or may not have some indirect interest in a grant or something, I don't see them the same as giving someone a variance to build or, a site plan review.
Okay. I was just wondering if the housing authority fit in this bucket as well.
The housing authority is a state agency, so it does not.
Okay.
The state agencies don't fit into it and the electeds don't. So the cemetery, library, council, and school committee are already not eligible for this.
Okay.
Ms. Bryant, do you have anything on this topic?
I do. So I am, at this point, I am not in favor of it because it's too broad. And I think it just can open the floodgates of tempting human nature to like on a political level be like a little bit of insider trading into the. I always try to look at what would be the worst possible scenario. Now, first of all, it says an ordinance to designate certain officials as special municipal employees, and the state ethics commission, their whole purpose and the conflict of interest and their allowance for special municipal employees, they always say just for certain positions, which is they designate very few, right? It would not be the norm. It would not, because it gives people more license to sometimes there may be a little bit of or a little financial interest or other things involved. It gives them much more license, and so it should be. I feel like saying all of these is problematic, and all of the whereases I felt like kind of contradicted the point of it. Like I said, if it said certain officials at first, but the actual amendment says all members of appointed multi-member bodies, except for the planning board, zoning board of appeals, and licensing board. And those, I believe, by the state regulations are already, they're not allowed to be special member, special employee, what is it? Special municipal employees. They won't be allowed to fall under that anyway. So really, I just think it's too broad. Definitely, it's too broad. People can serve on things, and that's fact. Also, it kind of, to me, it kind of will interfere with the point about the architects and this and that is good, but in terms of service and just bringing a wider scope of people and diversity of ideas and thoughts and that would allow Framingham to really be have just a broader reach in terms of their ability to improve the quality of life for other people, more people in the city, more residents. I feel like this could lead to easily, there's some people who are very enthusiastic about serving, so it could easily lead to the same people being appointed. It is human nature to appoint people that we know and trust, or to support that. Because it's easier. We know that they can do the job, blah blah blah. It's more difficult for us to seek out and wait and go through the process to get the people involved, other people involved, and sometimes people take on more than they can really do, and I think it will lend itself to giving people pause to think that to question Framingham's reasoning for doing this, and just question. I don't want the integrity of Framingham to be questioned. So I think that it's a too broad sweeping.
Okay, would you like to make a motion that we recommend to the council that we not adopt it?
Yes,
Is there a second?
as it is. Yes, for now.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion? Ms. Bryant?
Oh, yes.
Ms. Feeney?
Yes.
And the chair votes no.
Okay.
We have to vote by roll call tonight because one of our members is on Zoom, just in case anybody wanted to know why that was happening that way. Next on agenda, we have a discussion of the welcoming ordinance. For those who aren't familiar, a few years ago, we adopted a welcoming ordinance and a series of policies and procedures around that. This discussion tonight is to review that and talk about what are we doing? Are we prepared to deal with a surge in enforcement? Are we doing everything that we should be doing? What aren't we doing that we should be looking at? Or are we on a good course? Or should we change our course? It's an open-ended conversation. Ms. Souza, did you want to start off?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this. It is,
If someone is listening on Zoom, if you could mute it, yeah, just mute the voice so we don't get feedback.
it happens.
Thank you.
Oh, all good.
No worries.
Thank you so much for taking this issue in and for allowing me to weigh in. For those of you who, I hope there's nobody here who doesn't know me, especially on this issue. My name is Priscilla Souza. I am a resident of Framingham. I am also a state representative. I'm one of the 2 state representatives here today, passionate about this issue. And I myself am an immigrant who, because of the narrow paths that we have to citizenship, not because of a choice, I wasn't documented for 9 years living in this community a long time ago. And as we talk about immigration, I want to make it abundantly clear. I don't think I need to make it clear to the people in this room, but I'm going to say it anyway. The issue of immigration right now is not a Los Angeles problem. It's not a Chicago problem. It's not a Minneapolis problem. It is a Framingham problem as well. As early as this morning, as recently as this morning, we had a gentleman that was picked up on his way to work. We are not made safer when that happens. We are not, and this is far from an isolated incident. It is happening constantly in our courthouses, in our streets. People who are going about their businesses, the same people that helped build this community. But there are other ways that this is impacting Framingham on a broader level. The enrollment in our schools is down significantly, which affects all of our children through the school budget. Reporting of domestic violence is down because people are no longer, our organizations are having a hard time to have victims of domestic violence come forward, letting their abusers walk free because they don't want to risk walking into a courthouse and being picked up by ICE. Revenue around these establishments here in downtown Framingham is down about 40%, which becomes an economic development issue. There is a massive mental health crisis that's happening well beyond the immigrant community, which now turns us into also a public health crisis. Last week, my colleagues and I voted to pass the PROTECT Act. It was a policy-driven action that wasn't based on political grandstanding, but taking actionable approach within our state-level purview to keep people safe. It's now Framingham's turn. It's past due Framingham's turn to pick up the ball and make no mistakes. There are things that the city can work on. And if for no other reason, an entire class of people, an entire class of our neighbors are being demonized like savages, neighbors that look like me, they're being made to feel less human. And we're just standing by and watching it happen. We're not standing with them in our official capacities, not as much as we should. We can do more. We should be doing more. We don't have to choose between public safety and supporting the most vulnerable people in our community. And as we begin this discussion, thank you for taking this up. I hope we keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and they're a good filter for us as we proceed and listen to different things. Any other electeds who would like to speak on this on topic? Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Goodwin. I recently shared a letter with City Council regarding my concerns with flock cameras, and I'd like to read an excerpt from my letter now. First and foremost, the use of flock cameras breaches the privacy of Framingham residents by circumventing the Massachusetts Shield Law, which is designed to prevent the tracking of vulnerable individuals across state lines, such as members of the LGBTQIA community, those seeking reproductive care, or immigrants without proper documentation. Although Flock, a private company, claims their customers control whether or not they share data with other agencies, this yields questions regarding the potential and probable misuse of data. I regularly receive correspondence that my personal data has been compromised. I get these letters from banks, insurance companies, and commercial organizations. They tell me to watch out for changes to my accounts and my credit, and take little accountability for their shortcomings. How are we meant to trust Flock cameras? Banish Big Brother is a grassroots activist group promoting digital privacy and opposing the expansion of surveillance technology. Their website links to a map provided by DeFlockMe, a project exposing the locations of Flock cameras all around the country. In the image, you can see 8 cameras, yes 8, posted on all the major roads going in and out of Framingham. In alignment with our recent discussions about families moving out of our city and the reduced number of ESL students we are seeing in our schools, I can't help but wonder if the two are related. As the ESL bilingual department chair of Fuller, Cameron, and Walsh Middle Schools, I happen to know families are aware of Flock cameras. In the words of one family in particular, it feels like we are being hunted. I don't believe the use of Flock cameras aligns with the welcoming residents and building community ordinance. Yet feelings don't equal facts, so what are the real privacy concerns? I'll list some of them for you now. Improper access control, cryptographic failure, broken authentication, sensitive data disclosure, physical access to cameras that does not properly deter tampering, devices shipped without secure boot enabled, the software that ensures the device only runs trusted programs, running out of date software that no longer receives security updates. Also, as a resident of Natick, although I work in Framingham, I do tend to track what's going on in both locations. I am aware that in Natick, these cameras were installed improperly without proper permissions, and that was one of the reasons that Natick recently voted to remove them. So I'll end with this. I don't think the ends justify the means. Residents should not have to sacrifice basic privacy for safety, nor should we have to put our privacy at risk, especially those who are most vulnerable. Thank you.
Alicia, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I was actually looking for electeds, but I'd like to get an update from the chief and deputy chief, if you could, if you want to come forward and talk with us.
If we grab a seat.
Whatever you like, please. Grab a seat. Lots of questions to be answered, so that's good.
Well, we'll start by answering that young lady's questions right there.
Super. And I just remind you, Chief, and I know we talked about this, we're trying to have a broad conversation. We need to address Flock, but we want to have a broad conversation about any other issues that we need to deal with or exist around the welcome ordinance.
Well, you mind if we start there?
Oh, no, you go start. You have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you. So we're just going to start out with, approach some of your concerns that you had with Flock. We too are fully aware with Flock, that's been going on around the country. People are upset about it. We have taken our own steps. We do not share out-of-state inquiries. We don't just let you access. So the states that you are referring to with your concerns, they don't have access. Here in the Commonwealth of Mass, we have what's called the Lund decision. If you do not know what the Lund decision is, that is the decision where police officers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts cannot engage in any type of immigration. We cannot. So we obviously don't share with people that can. Your other concerns regarding tracking, unless there's a vehicle that we're looking for, and I'll use an example, Adina. Adina was held up at gunpoint. We entered that plate and it hit off some Flock cameras. If you just simply drive by a Flock camera, it is not giving off registry information. It snaps a photo, but it does not take your registry information, so it does not know who owns that vehicle, what your past criminal history is, what your immigration statuses, it does not track any of that. Simply querying a plate would give you a lot more. And when I say query, like running it over the radio would give you a lot more information than a flock camera would give you. I know your concerns, that's why we've taken the steps preemptively to address those concerns. We actually put up a transparency portal up on the City of Framingham website, so you can see who we share with, the number of plates that are read, the number of times we actually get what we call a hot plate to actually query, and there's other information on that. Is there anything else that you said that, am I missing?
I'm only unclear as to, if the company is a private company, could they not then access the data that we're only supposed to keep local in Massachusetts?
Well, they give us that data, and we do go with the security features. Could somebody hack something? I'd be lying if I said that they couldn't, but we definitely take all of our features and make sure we go that. We lock down our controls in-house. Not everybody can access the cameras or access the data. It all has to run through our analysts, so people just can't go randomly getting into the system. Young lady with a hand up.
Are you aware that Flock can share driver surveillance data with other police departments even if you opt out?
What do you
Like
mean?
that's in their contract.
What do you mean driver surveillance data?
So the data that you're talking about that Flock cameras take, even if you say that you're opting out from, I'm saying that other departments, if they run something, if they decide they want to look for something, they can use that data from Framingham without your permission, even with opting out, like it's in the contract.
Well, personally here, that's something we do not have in our system.
So talk about, if you could, Chief, talk about the steps you've taken, one in terms of a policy and two in terms of your flock contract.
So with the city solicitor now, some of that language that does give other people access, we have our city solicitor working with Flock to engage the current contract to take any word in that. We took the steps to make sure that does not happen. There is nobody else inside of our system, other than, like I said, people that come with one decision, and that's pretty much police departments in Massachusetts.
So the clause that states the customer hereby grants Flock worldwide perpetual royalty-free right and license to disclose the agency data for investigative purposes is no longer in the contract?
If we had opened that up, I'm sure we could share with, like I said, we could share with just anybody, but we are not doing that.
I would love to see the contract, and
So-
is that something that's easily available?
So Chief, why don't you walk through, because I think a lot of questions, walk through, what is somebody in Waltham State Police, they want to access our cameras for something that's going on in Waltham. And also, let's use three examples, State Police, Waltham, and some federal agency.
The federal agency is out of play because they don't have access to our system.
Can you say that again?
Federal agencies do not have access to our system.
Don't have access to your system, but don't have access to the data at all.
No. Does the federal agencies have access to the RMV? They could do that all on their own, but they do not have access to flock cameras. To our flock cameras, no.
So what if I'm State Police or Waltham?
Yes.
I'll tell you right now, Waltham has it. I don't know if this is alphabetical, hopefully it is.
I don't think so. Oh, it is.
It is. So Waltham Mass PD does have access to our cameras.
And what do they need to do to get access to the data?
So they would be basically, let's just say they have a stolen motor vehicle that was stolen from 123 Main Street in Waltham, plate Mass 123 ABC. And they want to put that into Flock to see if it hit off of any of Massachusetts Flock cameras, or whoever they share it with, and vice versa, who they have an agreement with. They would go in, put that plate in, based on their policy, and put it in the plate, give a reason, stolen motor vehicle, and then that plate would go out and access all the cameras that they have access to, which Framingham being one of them. So that plate could potentially hit off of our camera, and then give them a lead to say, okay, that stolen vehicle was last seen in Framingham at 8:00 PM on Friday night, which gives them just a nugget of a lead now to hopefully find more.
And can you tell that Waltham has done that?
Yes, there's a way for our analyst that she can go in and see who accesses our data. We also keep that, and it's on our portal as well, why we access the data. And if I could just give you, I'll just give you some numbers, and everyone, this is on our website under the transparency portal.
Under where, sir? Say again.
It's under the transparency portal. If you go to the Framingham, Mass. Police Department website, go to transparency portal, the flock one is the very first one.
So are you saying that's copies of information of an audit that your folks?
Yeah, I'll actually kind of
Just a
explain.
question.
Yes, yeah, it does. So,
Thank you.
for instance, we had 292,095 vehicles hit off of our flock cameras in the last 30 days. Of that, we did 379 searches on all of that. So that's like 0.13% of all the vehicles that hit off of that, we did that many searches.
So Deputy, the 379 searches that you've done.
Yep.
You know who has done each and every one of those.
Correct, so then there's, and this is on that site as well, there's an Excel spreadsheet.
I just wanted to come.
Yeah, I'm speaking to the whole audience. So on that site, if you hit that Excel spreadsheet, the worksheet, there's an ID column, which is basically just, I'm not an IT guy, so I apologize. Basically, their internal numbers that just track when it's getting touched on. Gives you the date and time, the network count, I'll explain what that means right now. So like there's a 1 there and there's a 317 there.
Yeah.
I actually had to ask this question myself. One is that's probably an officer that only has access to Framingham's network, one network, Framingham. Our crime analyst, say, has access to 317 networks, so a motor vehicle theft or stolen, when he or she enters that, it could be our detective lieutenant, puts that in, it'll hit off of all the cameras they have access to. We give access level permissions based on your rank and where you're assigned basically within the police department. And then it gives the offense type, wanted person, missing endangered person, runaway, criminal motor vehicle offense. I'm just reading off some random ones here. Motor vehicle theft, stolen, wanted person. And there's again, this refreshes every night. Drugs, narcotics investigation, larceny, theft. And you get where I'm going with that. There's a drop-down menu that every officer is required to put these data fields in.
I took my head for, actually, I want to come back to a different
Okay.
point before I talk to
Okay.
this particular issue.
Yep.
In response to this woman's question back there, the Flock's camera contract was just revised. And in that contract, it says Flock's owns everyone's data in perpetuity and can be used for training purposes for any reason that they deem necessary. So regardless of what a city agrees to and who shares, who gets, who sees, Flock's can undermine that, and has. There are articles in the news, if you Google it, with their concerns about reproductive health care, gender transition care, where it has been documented that this information got to another state when there was supposed to be no agreement in sharing that information.
And you say that was done by flock administrators that were sharing that information?
I would have to surmise that. I don't know it for a fact, but who else would have given them that information? If that town or that state has entered an agreement in good faith saying that they would not share it outside of their state or municipality. So how did they get the data?
I'd like to dig into that more, that's why I'm asking.
I didn't dig into that quite level of granularity yet.
No, but if
that
you-
clause
she
read is what, that clause that she just read is what says it. It said that you,
Yeah.
even though we're opting out, we are granting.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to that, could I just?
Please.
Add on to it, sorry. So regardless of like, one of the reasons they do this, I don't know if people have kept up with AI and all this other stuff, is that they use our data, our non-consensual data of our being tracked, regardless of whether or not individual people see it. AI is using that to create systems of information to create mass surveillance networks. So even if right now That is not what it's being used for. We cannot say that in the future, this is not going to be used to harm our immigrant community members or members of the LGBTQI plus community or other vulnerable members of our community. It is a fact that AI is being used, they have this in their contract to be able to train AI to get better and better at things. We have no idea what they are going to do in future with it. And their contract says that they can do whatever they want with that.
So just to be clear, the generic contract you're talking about, which is different than the contract they're looking at, because we're trying to dig into this as granular, in as granular a way possible.
The AI part is, I'm saying like that part, they consider, like that's, they still say that because a person's eyes is not on it, that an AI is using it to train information, they consider that different. That's still happening. They will use all of that to train their AI. There's not a lot of laws against protecting data from training AI systems at this point.
Agreed. So, excuse me. Just a notice for everybody, this is not our first and last conversation about this. So part of what I'm trying to do tonight is to give everybody a chance to participate, to gather questions and information, to get the police and others to respond to it, and we will have more than one session to go through and to look at this and to challenge and test the assumptions the two of you are making. So we don't need to litigate and prove that tonight. We need to raise questions so that we can deal with it.
A real example of how this has happened with AI training. The U.S. Immigration and Customs and Enforcement, the TSA, started using facial recognition in their TSA pre-check.
But can you be specific about,
What I'm trying to say is they use that data set to train facial recognition, and now that same software is being used to identify protesters and immigrants, like the same software.
I understand that. I want to try to stay specific and focused on license plate readers so that we're focused on what we have to deal with, not generically what that is.
I saw the connection because I'm not talking about facial recognition, I'm talking about using data to build AI systems as a form of.
I understand your generic point.
But with all due respect, Councilman, it's the trickle down of what this data that is being collected and where it's being used elsewhere. That's the point. Besides LGBTQI and besides gender affirming care, it is also a violation of closely violating our First and Fourth Amendment rights and how they're using this data. And that, in my personal opinion, in today's world, right now, in the political climate we're living in, that has to stop. And Framingham should be above that, quite frankly. We should not allow our First and Fourth Amendment rights to be cut out because a company wants to sell their product across the country.
Well, we're not clear that they're selling their product across the country. We're trying to figure that out.
Okay.
So the chief has said one thing, we've said generically another thing. We need to dig into it and get a real answer.
Well, as long as there is some digging and some report back of your investigation.
There will be.
Fair enough.
And it's also clear to note, while we're going through all of the horrors of this, they'll also tell you stories of how we've caught batterers, how we've caught bank robbers and the like by using the same systems within our community. I think we need to try to take our, collective national anger and try to focus it in and figure out whether or not locally this is or is not something we have to address. I want to turn it back to the chief so that they can answer make some additional comments, because they'll answer questions as they go through.
And before we move on, I know you told us all to move on, but I want to second what you just said. We use this, it's my job to protect everybody in this room, to protect my officers. I do not want one of my officers to stop a motor vehicle that was used in an armed robbery, a homicide, and I'm using examples that these cameras have been used for. These cameras now can let that officer know that this car that they're stopping, this car 123 ABC was just involved in a homicide without blindly walking up to that motor vehicle. It can tell me that somebody was just raped by this person driving this car or potentially driving this car. Example right here downtown, somebody did an armed robbery. That's what we want to use this information for.
Absolutely.
Am I blind to the fact or tone deaf about people's concerns across the country for other things that happen? That's why we weren't mandated to take these steps. We took these steps ourselves, and we will take more steps to make sure that we do not engage in what your worries are.
I hear you.
And if that means that maybe we have to go different routes or that, we are listening, but you can't just, but let's just say, let's forget about technology and never advance. But if we need to make sure we're doing things that we protect the rights of everybody, but I'm also looking out to protect people. So we hear everything you're
Chief, I thank you for
saying.
your service, and I respect that, and that's why.
Oh yeah, that's not why I'm saying it, I just wanna let you know.
Okay, excuse me. Please, give him a chance to finish speaking. We let one person speak at a time.
I thought he was.
Go ahead, I'm done,
And
go ahead.
excuse me,
I just wanted to say that it's not what I'm not saying that to get kudos or nothing.
and I just wanted to
Oh,
let
excuse me,
people know.
let's let Ms. Bryant get into the conversation.
Thank you. Just a point, is that I cannot really hear the audience members, who aren't at the mic. I can catch some of it, but I really can't hear, like, all the specifics, just so they.
So just a
which
point,
is okay,
if you're gonna
but-
speak, if you could raise your hand and come up to the microphone to speak, so that Ms. Bryant can be part of this conversation as well. Any questions, Ms. Bryant?
No, not at this time.
Sorry, ma'am, go ahead.
Oh,
No, hold on.
I was she was saying something to me before.
No, I'm gonna get you, I just wanna give the councils a chance to catch up as well.
I do have a number of questions about the cameras, and I do appreciate you two being here today. Can you just go through again, you mentioned that you were working with the city solicitor on the contract. Can
Yeah.
you just talk through, just explain that a little bit?
Because when all this started coming up, some of the
Right.
things that were said, even though we know we don't share,
Yeah,
if there's things we need to tweak and get out and redo this contract, we're working on that.
okay. And I'm looking at your transparency portal here, which is good. And so I just also want to clarify, because you have a whole list here of the organizations granted access. So was this just granted access in the month of March, or is this all year round, these communities?
This is year,
Yeah.
am I dri- this is year round.
Okay,
So this is, and again, full transparency of what we've been working on since probably October, when this really started to hit the news. We have locked down our site because of everything going on nationally, right? We know what's going on. So we only share within Massachusetts, because all mass agencies fall under the Lund decision, right? So we know us, name any town out in the western part of the Commonwealth, we all fall under the same law. Now, with that being said, to your point, let's just say, I'm gonna use Los Angeles. They have something where a vehicle may be involved in a homicide, but they're saying it's from Framingham potentially. They can reach out to us and request access to our cameras, and we can give them permission to access it, to say, run that plate, to see if it hit off of us. But we could also just do it for them, right? Because we do that with agencies all the time around the Commonwealth, around New England, and around the country on investigations. We share information all the time, so we could give them granted access on a case-by-case basis.
now, when you grant access, say, to Los Angeles, I assume they have to state why.
Exactly.
Oh, 100%,
You have
yes.
to give us a case number, you have to state your reason why, you have to state who you are, state your rank,
Yeah.
and that's it. And like the deputy said, if Los, we'll use a case. If you were watching Stephen Gale, somebody that was just convicted of a rape and robbery 30 plus years ago, we had to share information when we finally tracked Stephen Gale to California. They were able to track him down, found out where he was staying, found out what vehicle he drove, and that just simply came from, sharing information. A lot more than what Flock had to offer of just a picture. And an investigation like that, you're sharing biographical data. You're running that plate. You know who you're going for. So if LAPD were to call, we don't really have to even grant them access. It's just a matter of did this plate cross this threshold? They probably already have their own information if they're working a homicide. They just need to know, am I looking for this car in LA? Or did this car make it to the other side of the country?
Okay. Just a couple of more questions. Does the data that you collect in a month then expire at the end of the month and it gets erased?
Yes.
Or, okay, so you don't keep that for 6 months or a year or anything like that? And this is all,
Which data you're speaking to?
I'm speaking of I'll clarify.
You'll get your chance.
The data
Respect hers.
of the photos that were taken by the cameras that all of that particular, the photo of the license plates get deleted at the end of the month.
Yep, I can explain maybe a little bit of how that works, because there's
That would be great.
an exception to retention on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So a plate that was ran 30 days ago today will drop off tomorrow, the 31st day, it goes away. If Sean Riley was doing an investigation and I was looking at a plate some, say, 15 days ago, part of our evidence policy, I could run that plate and then save that plate in picture, but it has to then go through our evidence procedure, right? Again, it's just another nugget of evidence. It's the same as if we had an armed robbery down at Fresh Cafe right now, and I grab one of the city cameras that is also pointing down there. I grab that video and it gets logged into evidence. That may stay, that image would stay with us based on evidence rules and records retention law within Massachusetts. Does that hopefully answer your question?
It does, that's
Okay.
very helpful.
All right.
You good?
I'm good for the time being, thank you.
Good. Go ahead. Again, if folks could just speak in the microphone and just say your name for the record.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is
Pleasure.
Kate thank you. My name is Kate Merritt O'Toole. I'm a resident of Framingham for the past 15 years. A key distinction in this discussion is neither, I can't speak for her, but from my perspective, we did not enter this discussion about flocks as not being a tool that's useful in fighting crime. Our first approaches in this discussion that I've heard with everybody else here is about our amendment rights and privacy and perhaps our protected status being violated. That's key, okay? We all know we can't function without a good community family, Framingham Police Department. However, with that being said, and I welcome the transparency for the data being out there, and I haven't looked at it recently, but when I did look at it, one thing, as being a data analyst for the VA, I noticed that the reason for looking at this, the preponderance of reasons didn't have enough granularity, in my personal opinion, because most of them were saying investigate, investigate.
We've changed that.
Good, because I haven't looked at it recently.
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you. Another issue that I'd seen was some of the data from certain months, I can't remember the months off the top of my head, the names of the people were not redacted. So that's problematic. And this was several months ago. I want to say it was prior to June. I can go back to my notes and find out.
Names of who, if you don't mind me
Yeah, but-
asking? Like
It may be even corrected, I don't know. Maybe somebody caught it and redacted them.
on Flock?
On your audit, because the plate, maybe I misspoke, the plate should be redacted from, in my personal opinion, from that document. Because that could, if it's transparent,
Yeah.
if it's transparent to anybody here in this room to read it,
Now, where did you get the information that you're saying, because you didn't know about the portal, you're saying you, a FOIA?
it
This
was not a
portal's only been
FOIA.
up
This
for a
is,
week.
Yeah, this has only been up.
well, then it must have been a FOIA. I'm sorry, I may have misspoken, but I do have the data. I'll share,
Yeah, sure, if I know where you got it, then I can speak
There are
to it.
other people
Yeah.
that want to ask questions, so we can take this offline.
But Kate asked an important question to follow up on.
Yeah, I want to follow up on the first thing you said. That's, if I didn't get my message clearly, my message isn't just, I want these for crime fighting. That's what I said. But what I said is, I hear you. I want to make sure that I'm addressing everyone's concerns to go along with that. So everything you said, I hear you, and we got to make sure that if it's not good enough now, we got to do better.
Right, and not wanting to be redundant, I think the majority of the issues or concerns that I'm hearing is how Phlox handles the security of their data, which is not pointing fingers at you folks.
But
And that needs to-
I hear everybody in this room.
That-
And that's why I want,
Okay.
what you told me, I want to dig into that. I'm going to dig into what this young lady said.
Yeah,
And that's where,
They are CJIS compliant.
And Kate, we'll dig into that point. I also want to go back to one other point you made on FOIA. Is this data FOIA-able? And,
We have it right up on the website.
it's up on the website. You don't have to FOIA it.
but I mean in terms of license plates and names.
We wouldn't give you
No,
that.
because that's under CJIS. We're not going to.
Okay. Okay.
PHI,
So that
it should
answered,
be- it should be protected
Yeah.
information.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Lewis, right? Professional. I wasn't going to ask a question, and I certainly wasn't going to speak, but it seems like we're having a couple conversations. One is about the police department and the use of cameras to monitor license plates. And I think if we were talking about cameras that you owned and you managed and you had that data, and then there'd be a question of who do you share with? And I think that'd be a separate conversation, and there would be debate in the community. But because Flock is a private company, I think if we deleted Flock and put Google cameras, even though we trust you, even if we trusted you and who you're willing to share with, that's a separate conversation, and I think there's still plenty of debate there. But if we sidestep that for a second, the fact that it's a for-profit private corporation that's collecting this data, that you're entering into a partnership with, even if we trust the Lund decision and trust who you're willing to share the data with. Again, still debate on that piece, but I think the fact that it's a private company that's collecting this data, and again, Google's a fine company, but if it were Google cameras, I think the average person would be paying attention even more. But because they're Flock cameras, we're still learning what that is. It's a corporation that's not a household name like Google, but they're still collecting that data. And so that's the part where I think we're having two separate conversations at the same time. And maybe when we're talking about privacy, they blend together. But I'm sitting here I don't want to say less concerned. I'm sitting here more concerned about why a for-profit corporation is collecting this data and what they may do with the data, choose to do as in sell or share. Less concerned about what you, following state law and the Lund decision, are going to do. I think it's this for-profit company that concerns most of the folks I'm hearing from. And I don't think there's anything that you can do on your end to prevent the for-profit company from collecting that data, because your agreement with them is about the data you get and that you release. But you can't change corporate policy because it's a for-profit company that wants to make money. So that's the part where I don't think there's any assurances shy of not having for-profit cameras that would make most people supportive of the idea of these cameras existing. And that's the struggle I'm having. And I know that's not necessarily a question, but for me, I just keep deleting Flock and inserting Google, and I'm getting a very different emotional response from the folks I'm hearing from.
Ask a question?
Of course.
But I understood everything you said.
You did? Okay. Perfect.
And you know me, if I didn't, I'd tell you.
You'll text me that.
would.
Yeah, okay.
And Jack, just so you know, critical to what we are looking at is the contracts and whether or not we can answer that question with comfort. That is a central part of what we're trying to figure out in this fact-finding discussion. I'm going to pause for a second from the room. We have two people online, so we can get them into the conversation.
Yes, Melina List, I'm going to give you the privilege to talk.
Thank you for the privilege. Is my audio okay?
It is, thank you.
Great. So yeah, Melina List from District 4. I don't have a lot to say just because my head's been swimming in the Flock discussion, but but just a few comments here that Framingham is clearly not doing enough to protect our immigrant community members. You know, if you talk to anyone who's volunteering on the ground right now, they can tell you that, and how many people are hurting right now. I know the chief and the deputy chief of police have talked about the Lund decision. Regardless of the Lund decision, there is both a perception and a really credible fear, particularly surrounding events that have been happening in surrounding towns about potential police collaboration with ICE, even if it's not, you know, as clear-cut as what some people fear. What else was I going to say? I had so many things to say, and I lost them all because now I'm thinking about data privatization and surveillance state.
So Lena, question for you, Lena. What can we do to do more? Let's try to broaden this conversation just a little bit, because I think we
Great
know what we need to
question.
respond to on Flock. I'm sorry, go
Great
ahead.
question. Keeping ICE away from the courthouse is a huge one. That I know that is being discussed with the PROTECT Act. I also think there needs to be more support, frankly, for mutual aid organizations. I know that there's discussion about, you know, how much should the government get involved with this sort of thing, but there are just too many people trying to pick up the pieces of broken families right now that need help. And yeah, generally doing what we can to not let ICE hurt people in Framingham I wish I had more specifics. I'm sorry, I was just reading over the number that 13 people that we know of have died in ice custody this year. And that's just got me thinking about, what can we do that's legal to not add to that number. That's what I have to say. Primarily, my thought is just like, let's keep them away from the courthouse. Thank you.
Okay. At some point, Ms. Souza, if you could just elaborate on the PROTECT Act, because I think that addresses some of those concerns. We're not here to deal with what the federal government should do and shouldn't do. We all know what those answers are. And we're not here to deal with the state piece of it. We're trying to figure out what we in our community can do. One of the things that you talked about was support mutual aid. I want to get one more person from the public, and then maybe we could go back to you for a second on the PROTECT Act.
Well, could I get to speak at some point too?
Yeah, and then we'll come back to you, Tracy.
Okay, so Melanie Waldron. You should have your permission. Okay.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Hi, Melanie Waldron, Precinct 7. As the previous speaker, I have so many things to say, but let me just make a couple of comments. I'm all for fighting crime, but what I haven't heard is how much has having the flock cameras reduced serious crime in our city? Are the benefits outweighing the fact that tens of thousands of citizens are, in my opinion, losing their privacy? And number two, I think that the title of this meeting was something about being a welcoming city, and I don't think having 25 or however many flock cameras throughout our city is welcoming at all to our immigrant community. I would also say that with regard to ICE, the fact that they are using our municipal parking lots to bring detainees who aren't even necessarily criminals just leaves a real feeling of concern that the city seems to be acquiescing to ICE being able to do that and enabling them. So that's what I have to say for tonight, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie, for saying that about using city property. Hold on, I'm trying to do things twice. Chief, can you talk a little bit, or Deputy Chief, about does ICE, the federal government, use our municipal properties for their activities? Do we allow them? Do we allow ICE to park in the?
We don't allow ICE to do anything.
Okay.
Just so we're clear on that.
Yes, that's why I'm phrasing it that way, yes.
We don't allow ICE to do anything. Have they been in public lots? And yes, I'm sure. They've been in private businesses, public lots. They don't use our holding facilities. They have their own locations, but that is something that's going along, everywhere. I know that's being addressed at a state level.
Okay. We'll get to you. Everyone will get a chance to speak.
Direct to this, that's all. I am part of a lot of community.
You need to speak at the microphone and state your name for the record.
It's very quick, sorry. Okay. Hi, I'm Courtney Varga. I work at Fuller Middle School. I live in Holliston. I am right near the district court, and I actually go by there every day. And I can assure you that they are using the shield. I don't think you have to give them permission to use the bay. Like, they use that bay to make arrests private. I think that's city property. I'm a little confused because you're saying you don't allow them to use the city property, but they're using that shielded bay to get detainees in without people seeing, so we can't
Where
observe.
are you, Courtney?
Are you talking about the courthouse?
Yeah.
That's not city property.
No, okay, so the bay itself, the parking lot is federal property?
State property.
State property.
Well, we're going to get to that in a second. We're going to get an update on the PROTECT Act from Priscilla, from Ms. Rep. Souza, and then we're going to go to Tracy Bryant for some questions, and then I'll come back to the public again. Everyone will get a chance to speak as much as they'd like. Did you want to?
All right, I'll give a very brief overview on the PROTECT Act, which we passed last week in the House to be to be frank, it is, it was passed in the House, it's now going to the Senate, and I cannot speak with any degree of confidence on if all these provisions will be in the Senate version, but I can speak to what we passed. So the PROTECT Act is what we could do within our limitations at the state level. This is, immigration enforcement is a federal issue, but there were things that we could do that we found after research, which started with the Black and Latino Caucus, and based on what we've been seeing in our communities. The first and foremost, I heard ICE detentions happening in the PROTECT Act. That is a cornerstone of what the PROTECT Act does. It prohibits any sort of civil immigration enforcement on courthouse property. Initially, there was a conversation about whether or not we could also reasonably restrict civil immigration enforcement on the way to or from the State House, not the State House, wow, the courthouse. Ultimately, it was found to be virtually impossible to enforce. So, so in full transparency, it has been limited to the state, to the courthouse, and in big reason because we want victims of domestic violence to be to feel safe. We want people, no matter how they're interacting with our legal system, to have complete access to due process, which makes us all safer. We had, I'll name it because I think we all know the story. We had a business owner here in Framingham who was detained because he was resolving a civil matter for his business. Another things that the PROTECT Act does, it does put restrictions on local police departments to enter into 287G agreements. I know that's not the case here in Framingham, but wanted to name that. It provides, for those who are not familiar with how enforcement is done in businesses, what they do sometimes is I-9 audits where they require all the documentation and it requires a 72-hour notice. Well, under the PROTECT Act, if a business owner knows that they're going to have an I-9 audit in 72 hours, they can't keep that information to themselves. They have to be able to tell their employees that there is an I-9 audit and there will be a federal agency coming to their workplace. Other provisions also include certifications for UNT visas. If you are a victim of a crime, if you are cooperating with our justice system as a witness, there is a path for you to obtain status. However, we need to be able to certify, we need to have state agencies and local agencies be able to certify you correctly. In order to do that, I know that Voices Against Violence has done a tremendous job, and I believe our local police department as well in cooperation.
We sign new visas all the time.
But we want to make sure that it's not just restricted to local police departments. And also, ironically, the people that are being taken into immigration custody and are ending up at Plymouth, if they have a biometric appointment and they're in ICE immigration custody, they end up missing. So they're being detained to ensure immigration compliance, and somehow their detention makes them non-compliant. So closing those loops on things like that, there are things that we could do. Do I wish we could do more? Absolutely. But this is what we were able to do within the purview that we have at the state level.
Thank you. It's a cruel system, and we're trying our best to figure out how to take some of the sharp points off of it. Ms. Bryant?
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to say, Representative Souza, you said in your opening statement that it's people that look like you, but I just want to, and I know you know this, but I just want to say that it's not just people that look like you, it's all immigrants, really, that are being targeted. And I applaud the PROTECT Act, and I think that one thing that we all can do is, like, write letters to the Senate, voice our opinion, get really, put as much light on the passing of the Protect Act, find out who our senators are, so we can try to push that to make sure it does get passed in the Senate as well. It is a start and it does do something. What I wanted to, ask though, too, of the police, well, first I'll just say that I think that, obviously, the main thing is we have to do everything we can to stand in solidarity with the actions that are at the state level that are being taken and nationally. Just the way Minnesota stood up, we have to stand up against the bullying that is going on. The practices are not legally being followed often, and it is in Framingham too. People are being stopped on any property, at gas stations or whatever, and in their own advertisement or whatever, or newsletter or something, ICE said that they arrested or they've detained 1,500 or whatever, 1 month or that kind of thing. But the problem is that most of the people, they were highlighting that they arrested a certain amount of criminals and deported them, but the truth is 3/4 of the people, or over half, almost 3/4 of the people that they detain are not criminals, and they are basically interfering with their work lives, their home lives, and they're not giving them even the due process that's on the books for immigration detainee status. So they're operating in a lawless way. So we do need to, as a city, just as other places are doing, and now is the time we have to do it now. We have to do all we can to keep ICE out and keep it separate from our agencies. And they are going everywhere, and there needs to be some method to hold them accountable. Just because they're federal and just because, the president is Trump, is a little, has allowed, maybe even some think has encouraged a lawless approach. He can be stopped, he's gonna have to be stopped. We start at the local level and then we'll finish. But at a previous discussion I think we as a council, we need to adopt the measures that our Councilor Ward had requested in terms of auditing our police department once a year, giving us the data on whatever collaboration or information exchange or work with ICE has been done. It's detailed in his proposed ordinance his proposed ordinance. So I am going to actually encourage the city council, and I think we've looked at it, but we'll look at it and hopefully we can approve that, because now it's needed. It's definitely needed. But at that discussion, the police said that they could not, that ICE, the federal government, had access to a lot of data that they, through the system, the system that they automatically can access, right, on people or on like arrest and things. So I would like the police, because now tonight, I know the flock cameras they may not have access to, but can we hear exactly what data they just pull from their database or our database and all databases nationally? What is the information that they can pull?
So, I just want to be clear. I'm trying to think of just the best way to kind of describe this. They don't have, the federal government, I don't know exactly what access they have to certain data. I'm assuming they can run a license plate like we can. They can go into and run warrants like we can. So if Framingham PD had a warrant for someone's arrest, they would probably be able to see that. As far as them having access to our data, they don't have and I'm talking specifically ICE at this point, because that's where the discussion is. So, it may be a question, and maybe I can just kind of clarify it. So, someone gets arrested by us, they come in, they get processed, and now they get arrested by us on a criminal case. We can't arrest for civil, criminal. They come in, they get processed, they get fingerprinted, that has to happen. Those fingerprints get uploaded without even us, it just happens. Gets uploaded to a federal database, and it checks around the country whether or not that person has other warrants, et cetera. It also will alert us back if there's a federal immigration detainer as well. And we will get notification of that. Once we get notification of that, that is documented, that piece is documented by us. So Sean Riley gets locked up, federal immigration detainer comes in on me, we take that, we let Sean Riley know, but that gets entered into my booking sheet that there's a detainer. Sean Riley, say, locked up for unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle. I am entitled to bail by law. If ICE called and said, we want Sean Riley, okay, he's here, but he's entitled to bail, and I get my $40 bail up personal, and I walk out the front door. And ICE shows up 10 minutes later. So we do track detainers, but Sean Riley walks out the front door. We tell the agents when they come in, he got bailed and he's gone. We don't hand people over to ICE. We bail people. And then if ICE is there, they will take custody of them, but but they have to make bail first. So is that the information you're kind of talking about? Like, we don't go, hey, we'll hold Sean Riley for you, and then you just get down.
No, I know that.
We don't do that.
No, the access,
Yeah, they don't.
look up who's been, detained by the Framingham police and things like that.
So
they
excuse me for stepping in, one of the things that Councilor Ward was asking for was more so data about ICE activity. I know that was one of his asks, and that was me personally that says, I can't give you data about ICE activity because I don't get involved in ICE activity. Now, I did give him some resources to contact the Boston field office if he did want to seek data, but we're not engaging in their day-to-day operations. So that's the data that, we don't have.
Tracy, much of the stuff that was in the model that Councilor Ward used are not they were either covered by our welcoming ordinance, the 287G agreement pieces, the Lund decision. The only piece that really wasn't covered in that package he had was the issue of reporting. Yeah, and so we need to think through what that looks like and the frequency, et cetera, before we go back.
Right, but the reporting piece.
Yeah, that's an important piece. So let's I
have another question.
Please.
For the chief. So there is, from the materials that you guys provided at that time of how Homeland Security works and the big tent and all of that, we do have officers that are working, with Homeland Security, or they're collaborating in their undercover investigations using not all of the police, but we do have some collaboration with Homeland Security. So my question is do we know whether what are the guardrails with Homeland Security in terms of ICE, since ICE is a department under them? In terms of our collaboration, where we have officers who do work, right? Don't they pick a couple officers or something like that?
So how that works is, yes, there's a task force officer assigned to Homeland Security, not ICE. And how that works, how they do not get involved with ICE is, one, our policy, and nothing supersedes case law. We keep referring to it, the Commonwealth versus Lund. Even within those TFOs, our officers can still not engage with federal law enforcement to enforce immigration. How we use Homeland Security is the amount of narcotics that comes through Framingham. we used those operations. There was just an operation in Framingham where people were arrested for soliciting minors over the internet that involved the state police and Homeland Security. There's other branches other than ICE. I said it before, we do not have somebody assigned to ICE. We do have somebody to combat narcotics that goes on in the city. With
Okay,
Homeland
thank
Security.
you.
We also have TFOs with the Drug Enforcement Agency. We also have TFOs with the FBI. We also.
What's TFO?
What's a task force officer?
Task force, okay.
We have an example of that is, obviously everyone knows what the Drug Enforcement Agency is. We have a TFO assigned to the forensics lab in Chelsea, and the best way I describe that is you're more likely, and somebody mentioned it when they were at the podium, that their card's always compromised, that your bank accounts are compromised. We have had people that have lost their life savings that are now retired. Drug investigations, child porn. We are now able to have the best equipment inside FBI headquarters, and some of those crimes that involves the exploitation of children or the financial crimes, we are taking those directly with our TFO to the FBI. In all federal agency TFOs, it is clearly documented, not only just within the agreement, but again, by the Commonwealth versus Lund, that they cannot engage.
Thank you. While Samantha comes up to the podium, I just want to remind folks, the police department, Sarah, the police department transparency portal has a bunch of really good information and policies on this, if you want to join us.
Thank you. Hi, Samantha McGarry. Quick question back to what you were talking about, Deputy Chief Riley, just about the immigration detainers and that kind of stuff. And this is kind of tangentially involved to all of this, but I was at the courthouse last week and witnessed a detention of a guy who had been arrested the day before for a suspended license. He wasn't on the docket. He was waiting there, and there were 2 ICE agents hanging around, and when the courts broke for lunch, they came up and took him. And I'm like, how do they even know he's there? How do they know to get him? And why are they able to come into the building and take him?
So that's actually probably a very easy one, because if we notify them, which we have to, that
Yeah.
there's a detainer, and just say that that person was locked up, who knows if they were locked up by Framingham, it could have been Natick, it could have been Holliston, right? Once they know that that person was locked up, and then they say they never even went to the police station, the person made bail, well, they know where they're gonna be, they have to get arraigned at court. So it makes sense that they're gonna go to the courthouse and wait for them to come out.
Right.
So that's not us.
I know
That's
it's
not
real.
us
I'm just trying to
proactively
understand
saying,
how it
hey,
happened.
Sean Riley just got out, and
Yeah.
you see him in court tomorrow morning. They know that, they're law enforcement officers, they know the process.
Yeah.
You usually get arraigned the next day.
The next
Yeah,
day.
You're
right.
arrested.
And then my question to Priscilla is, if the Protect Act is voted by the Senate, the same, if it comes in, would they have been able to have gone to the courthouse and taken this person on courthouse property?
I think, given the fact that, I know the Protect Act says, I'm not an immigration attorney, so I'll start with that. The Protect Act says no civil enforcement of ICE whatsoever. That being said, without knowing who they are and exactly what the detainer was, if it falls under civil enforcement, no, it would not happen.
Yeah.
I apologize, I can't be
No,
more
it's
specific.
okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to thread the needle a little.
We're all trying to
No,
do
it's
the
a
same
good, it's a
thing.
good question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please. No, I'm sorry. Sarah, we'll get to you next.
No, go, Sarah.
Go ahead.
I have a Zoom meeting, I have to be home.
You gotta go to the Yukon rally, I know.
No. They haven't won yet. Although you might have heard me scream last night about 24 hours ago.
Michigan's gonna give them a challenge.
Illinois first.
I know. I'm assuming that they deal with that first challenge.
So I'm Sarah McKeown, District 7. I'm just sort of here generally speaking. I'm here for my students and families. Also, I'm a favorite target of many local negators. And I mean, my thing is, people can have whatever opinion they want about immigration. That's fine. Actually, nobody's ever even asked me my opinion. But what is people's opinion on humanity and human beings? I've come to school committee meetings, I've come to city council meetings, I've asked multiple times for city leadership to speak out and declare their support, at the very least, visibility and appreciation for our immigrant community members, and that has not happened as often or as publicly as it should. Immigrants have always been the backbone of this nation, and in fact, immigrants built this nation. They continue to contribute in myriad ways, and especially in this community. And aside from the disgusting and inhumane treatment of immigrants in our own streets, these interactions are being witnessed by many people, including children. No matter how you feel about immigration, you should absolutely stand up against the disgusting treatment of your fellow human beings, of children. As a teacher in this community, I regularly speak with students, families, and colleagues who've been directly affected by the outrageous acts of ICE. A parent last year during a spring conference asked me if I would be willing to take her son if he came home and found his home empty. This morning, before I could even leave for school, I was getting notifications about ICE activity at Butterworth Park. I live right up the street. The kids were all out there waiting for buses, so before I even went to school, I did laps around Butterworth Park in the side streets to make sure that the kids were all able to get on the buses. No parents got taken. Everything seemed kosher. I went off to school shaking, but I got to school to do my job. This is our community. Framingham is ours. It is not the community for the masked mystery invaders who have terrorized our neighborhoods, including mine. I don't think I'm asking, or any of us are asking, for anything crazy. We're asking people to imagine that it's their wives, their husbands, their parents, their neighbors, their children being yanked away, taken with no due process, and on top of that, in the most cruel way. And frankly, I think we've incorrectly labeled who the criminals are. I actually appreciate the work that FPD has done. Deputy Chief, I was one of the people that spoke when you came. I can't remember which one it was because I go to every freaking meeting.
I remember.
Yes, and I appreciated your honesty and diplomacy because you guys cannot be in an easy position, and I think you're stuck because you can't necessarily jump in. But then I hear about, you know, these people coming into your community and usurping your roles, your responsibility, your trust that you're trying to keep and rebuild with the community after, you know, blunders of the past and whatnot. And then we read about things going on in Philadelphia and Minneapolis where some of their local law enforcement have taken a stand. So then I wonder within our community what can be done. And that's for me to ask, and I don't know if there's an answer for that, but it does make me wonder. And the welcoming ordinance that we all helped to create a few years ago has never been more important than it is now, considering everything that's going on. And our community members, all of us, especially those that are disenfranchised and living in constant fear, are looking to you, the leaders in this community, to represent them, to stand up for them. But not only that, to stand with them. So we need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I think that's well said.
Thanks.
We all need to think about what we can do and how we can do more, which is part of the reason we're here today. And I also think you hit an important exclamation point. Our FPD are our friends. They're our allies, and we want people to feel comfortable reaching out, talking to them. Framingham, for decades, not just these two gentlemen, has been one of the most progressive leading departments in domestic violence, abuse, victim witness advocate, dispute resolution, et cetera.
Being a licensed social worker along on night
Yeah.
shifts, like, yeah.
Yeah, so we need to remember as we're going through how we're channeling our frustration and our anger and where it belongs and where it doesn't. And we're having a very nuanced conversation because we're at a point where there's limits to what we can do, and we need to take a close look at the PROTECT Act and figure out how we dovetail and deal with some of those nuances as well. Sir, if you could just state your name for the record and join us. Oh, I'm sorry, Samantha. You're next on the docket.
My name is Phil Wrights.
No.
And,
I know.
and I concur with everything that was just said. And I have to ask you, as a Framingham police officer, how you must feel when guys come in from who knows where with no vetting, or maybe a little bit of vetting, and they have the same thing on the back that says police. I think many of the members of our immigrant population, they see police and they think they don't discern. Police. Can nothing be done about requiring these thugs who come in, that should have SS on their shoulders, take the police off? Why can't we at least have that taken care of? I have to think it's got to be very difficult for the morale in your department to think that somebody gets a $50,000 bonus, maybe a high school diploma, and they get to come in here and enforce laws that are not ours. That's all.
Thank you for your
Can nothing be
comments.
done about that?
I wish we could. Sorry, go ahead.
My apologies.
It's
The-
all
the-
good,
the-
it's all
the-
good. I'm Laura Beck, I've been a resident for 18 years this time. Thank you for being here and what you do. Two things. When you go, I know that you've heard everybody, and so to Jack's point about Google or Flock, you know, when you go over the contract, do we get to see the contract and see the fine print? That's the Flock
I
question.
couldn't agree more with Councilor Stefanini. This is the first conversation that
Yeah.
we.
Because
have
that was
had.
disturbing what she
So
read,
now
what she
we-
read.
So now, like I said, you can't leave without me talking to you,
Yeah.
all right? Because I want that, what you were talking about. I know all the things that were said in the contract. We were addressing that before we got here. So now, give us time, go back, dig in a little bit more, and have another conversation.
Perfect.
There is an active FOIA for the contract.
Gotcha.
The other thing I have, and I could be wrong about this, I went to Boston for the Safe Communities hearing. And I swear there was, I want to say he was a DA from one of the cities or towns, could have been, I don't remember which one. It was one of the cities or towns that are kind of near Boston. And they said, to your point about the fingerprints, that if it was not a bad crime, they didn't book them. And that way, they didn't have to go into the system that goes nationally to trigger ICE. Now, it was a very long day, and I don't remember what city it was, but I was like, did they just say that?
So
You know, like, so.
you can charge somebody without booking them, and that's called a summons. Let's just say.
And then it doesn't go into the system.
Let's just say I stop, we'll use myself. Sometimes people don't like being used as the example.
You can use me, I don't care.
Deputy Riley shows up to Target, and I'm in there shoplifting.
Okay,
Deputy Riley runs me. I don't have a history of shoplifting. Let's just say I'm down on my luck.
yeah,
I'm honest with him. He says, you know what, you're honest, but you still committed a crime. And he summons me. I still have to go to court, but I wasn't arrested. Now, there's no fingerprints involved when you're
So it
summoned.
doesn't go
You don't come to
national.
the summit, it doesn't go national.
That's
But
what
I
I
do
heard.
get a court date that comes in the mail. That same scenario, where I'm not honest with Deputy Riley, I have a very history. They know I'm going up and down Route 30, hitting
Right.
Target,
right,
Macy's,
right,
Kohl's, and they say, you know what, you're coming in tonight.
okay,
I cannot bring somebody to the station and not process them properly.
I hear you.
I would be violating my own policies and everything else.
I hear you, that's why that was the
That's-
question
but
for me,
that might
because I
be-
didn't
that might
understand the
be what-
nuance of it, and I was
Especially
at
coming
your
from a
other one where
DA,
you
I
talked.
think that's the only thing I can think of. Now, there's one other one. I'm out here on Union Ave tonight, and I'm celebrating the big Yukon win, and I have one too many. And I'm stumbling out into the roadway, and Deputy Riley encounters me and says, I don't think you can care for yourself tonight, and I don't want you to get hit by a car. Can I take you home? And I say, nope, not going home, don't have a home. He can't leave me out stumbling into the roadway. He would take me
And then he
to the
has to look.
station. For 6 hours, he has to book me, but he does not print me.
Okay,
Because I am not there
okay,
for a criminal offense. I'm not going to court on a protective custody.
Mm-hmm.
Protective custody is just simply, I've had too much to drink.
okay,
He actually has to offer me to go to a detox first.
okay.
Most people, 99.9, say no, I'm gonna go sleep it off with you. And even now with drugs, again, that same scenario, but let's just say I'm high. We don't even take you to the police station in that scenario. We are obligated to then take you straight to the emergency room. So if you've had too much drugs and you can't care for yourself, we take you to the emergency room.
Okay.
And again, you're not processed. There is no overall reporting.
Thank you for explaining that, because when you said it the first time, it didn't sit well with me, because I was like, I think I heard this differently. Maybe we can, that's the gray, where maybe we can do something with that. Anyway.
So,
We try to take
You know what I'm
immigration-
trying to say,
take
like maybe
immigration
the
out of
target
it.
guy can.
You want it, we try very hard, sometimes you can't always. Juveniles is the number one. You don't want to have to arrest a juvenile. There are some things that we have to. I go to a domestic tonight, I'm taking the aggressor. There is no ifs, ands, or maybes.
Right.
We're mandated to. you do try to use those summons scenarios when you can. A lot of motor vehicles, interactions that end up turning criminal, turn into a summons, suspended license for one. Suspended license because you lost your license for an OUI, different animal.
So like Samantha's story about the man who.
Now, I don't know, can you be?
Yeah,
Let me
you know what I
preface
mean,
that.
it's just like.
If you
it's
have
just
a
like-
suspended license, you can be arrested.
So-
But usually there's something more, or it just could be that was just your luck of the day.
Does that answer your question, Laura?
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I get
So
long-winded.
I'm gonna.
No, you're good, thank you.
We're gonna go to some folks out in Zoom land to get some new voices into the conversation, and then we'll come back. While we're doing that, just an editorial comment. These gentlemen are accessible to folks in the community and have been consistently. I look around this room, and several people in this room and I have had numerous meetings over the years. When 287G became an issue, none of us knew that terminology, I think, prior to DJT. The Biden-era administration documents, they were quick to deal with them and to address them. It's very important to know that our local folks are responsive, they're listening, and they've taken steps historically in the room, outside the room. And I can tell you, Laura, in terms of your question, I know a lot of neighbors. I live in District 8. A lot of neighbors who have had issues with no driver's licenses. Going through that process without a driver's license, that is horrific. The police deal with it in a very discreet and humane way. And different circumstances warrant different things. But they're doing their part to be helpful to our community. With that, we have some folks on Zoom.
We do. Lisa or / Skeeter, you are allowed to talk.
Yes, Lisa Story. Sorry, I should have changed my screen name so it would be a little less informal. I've been a resident of Framingham for over 30 years now, and I have witnessed some of the frisking and shackling of people who are being detained by ICE in the municipal lot. And I understand, at least what I've heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because it is a public municipal lot that we really can't say they can or cannot use the lot. I'm wondering, however, if we can be more creative, because when I have seen them in the lot, they're using the small lot in the back away from the main part of downtown, and they're double parking, they're blocking cars in, they're parking on the sidewalk. Can we get them for normal, ordinary town infractions, or can they overrule us by saying, oh, well, federal prerogative, we get to park on the sidewalk even though that's illegal? That's all.
Deputy?
I know, I understand what you're asking. Where, and I think this was said by another chief around the country, if we went out to them, an armed law enforcement officer now confronting another armed law enforcement officer over parking their vehicle in the back lot, and let's just say it was double parked, right, and they're putting someone into custody. Hey, if you don't move, I'm gonna give you a ticket. I just think you're asking for some major problems there.
We understand.
So.
And that lot you're
We gotta
talking
be
about, if you're talking about the one in Concord Street, is the courthouse, it's a state lot. Lisa, did that answer your question?
That did answer my question, and I didn't realize it was a state lot, so good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Welch, sorry.
Hi, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jennifer Weech. I'm part of District 2. I've been a Framingham resident for 4 years. I have a very brief comment. I just wanted to add my voice to those who are supporting the ordinance proposal, which is trust in local law enforcement. And I also want to add my voice to say that I very much support the work that our police are doing, and I appreciate everything they're doing, and I would feel much more comfortable if the surveillance was kept within the city of Framingham and not being partnered with a corporation that we don't have as much influence on. And I also want us to see if we can, in our investigation of the safety of this software, of using these flock cameras, we can also think proactively about what would happen if federal mandates come or federal agents come and say, we want to use this data to track people for the reasons that some of my community members shared tonight. You know, who are going into clinics, who are getting certain kind of health care, who are attending protests, who are immigrants in different places. I'd like to kind of think about what would we do if we got, you know, if you were required as a city to give over this data that we're trying to protect. I think we need to kind of think ahead and get ahead of this. And so, yeah, I just support that and the PROTECT Act, and I appreciate our community members showing up today to kind of stand up for everybody, because that's what makes Framingham great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. We have one more?
Melody Waldron again.
As folks are speaking more than once, who've spoken several times, I ask you bring new information to the table, new questions to the table, as this is sort of our fact-finding discussion.
Melanie, you lowered your hand, but I gave you permission.
Yes,
So good.
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councilor, you mentioned that there'd be future meetings about this, so I'm just curious to know when we can expect the next meeting to be.
So it hasn't been set yet because we're working through our budget meetings, but we tend to meet on Monday nights because it has the least conflicts. And my guess is we would meet towards the end of April.
Would it be entitled the same if we go online?
Oh, yes, same group, same everything else. If folks want to send me an email, I'll make sure you get an email about it. Or you can look online at the portal and look up the meeting, and I'm sure there'll be enough visibility. I usually try to post on Facebook so that people know the meeting is going on. But it won't be like next week. It'll probably be in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, which will give us a chance to get contracts, look at background information, and put some specific information up. The agenda will include whatever the background information we have, policies, contracts, et cetera. So you don't have to go searching for them.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes, Ms. Bryant.
you have the next meeting is April 27th.
Yes, but we haven't discussed it yet, so I haven't.
Okay.
That's why I was tentative in the way I shared it, because it's on our agenda for us to talk about, to make sure that works for everybody.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I do have something new, sorry.
No, don't be sorry, please.
I sent, I originally had a longer, I sent an email to you just so that I wouldn't be repetitive. Just again, my name is Courtney Varga. I work in Framingham at Fuller Middle School, and I live in Holliston. I've lived here forever. I just wanted to say, I use they, them pronouns, by the way. I just wanted to let people know that. I'm one of those individuals that the SHIELD law is meant to protect. I know we've talked about how it's not being used out of state, but I also want to point out, I have an X on my license. And I don't know if anyone's familiar, Kansas just invalidated overnight trans individuals' licenses, like everybody's, like with a law. I know that's very unlikely to happen in Massachusetts, but then I would be one of those individuals who suddenly is driving on a suspended driver's license, an invalid driver's license. I am well aware that I need to be extra careful because of my identity. I just don't trust a for-profit company to keep me safe. And I think that all vulnerable individuals deserve to be safe in their community. I have to pass these flock cameras to go to work. I have to. They are on the major roadways I use to get to work. We've already talked about a lot of the stuff I wanted to, but the thing I do want...
Take your time, Courtney.
Oh, sorry.
Take your time.
I'm not a good speaker.
You're doing great.
So, one thing that is new, I did want to bring up, and I do realize I'm very lucky to live in Massachusetts. This is not Kansas, but I did just want to bring that to people's attention, that overnight they became criminals for driving on a suspended license. But also the Massachusetts government is discussing House Bill
H3755 titled An Act Establishing Driver Privacy Protections, which would, in effect, I believe, ban a for-profit company like Flock being able to do what they're doing. If this passes, after Framingham pays for the contract, does the city lose the money they've invested in the community? That's my question. I don't know if you know about this bill that's currently going through the Massachusetts government right now.
So
Your question is, if the law changes, would we lose the money that we paid for the flock cameras?
And still not have that, like, would you not be able to?
It's a law that said we could not have license plate readers regardless of what money is owed. We would not have flock, we would not have.
So we wouldn't be able to reinvest that into something else?
That's the one thing I will not do. I will not break the law.
Oh, it's not about breaking the law. It was more of about being able to like invest that in like something else that would actually help you. Like would you be able to get that money back if the state passed that law?
And it's like any other contract.
Yeah.
If I'm engaged in a contract, the city engages in a contract with me. If
Right.
that person says we no longer have business and want to give me my money back, I'll gladly take it.
But Courtney, we're not gonna make a decision based on a few dollars. This is bigger and more important than that.
Oh,
And-
no, I just wanted
and-
to bring up that point.
And feel confident, we don't live in Kansas.
I
And I see two people who, in this room who, they would be dragged around if anything even remotely like that was even debated.
I understand. I just wanted to put it in context of how we're talking about how these cameras are being used for violations of the law, and about how in a state in the United States that we live in, people with my identity, they became violators of the law overnight.
I understand. I'm just trying to
yeah.
keep us focused here where we are, but I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Way in the back.
I hadn't expected to speak this evening, but I.
You always have the most to say, so that's good.
Well, I wanted to say two things, I guess.
Just introduce yourself for the record, if you would.
My name is Diego Lo. I'm the director of a local not-for-profit based here about 100 yards from where we're sitting this evening. Two things. One is about two events of about 10 days ago. One is the person who Samantha made reference to earlier this evening. He was in court, Framingham District Court, on a suspended license. It was simply suspended because of a previous driving without a license. His wife, mother of his 1-month-old kid, told us that he had gone out that night to purchase wipes for the kid. I don't actually know what time of day it was. What's actually extraordinary about what happened in that particular moment, because unfortunately that's pretty usual, that, what it does to families, you guys can imagine. But he was sitting in the hallway between probation, the clerk's office, and courtroom 1 when he was accosted by the officers, the DHS officers. And I don't know, but to my knowledge, that's not a frequent occurrence, that they're actually detaining people in the public areas of the courthouse. But the fact that it happened once means that we may well see more of it. And the impact on law enforcement, because of course then nobody can afford to go to court. So I guess I say this to the Framingham community. We need to figure out how we're going to make it absolutely abundantly clear that that's not acceptable in political terms, because our courts cease to function for the immigrant population if they're going to detain people in the public spaces of the courthouse. The other person who we saw, I think the same day, was a young Framingham resident, recently moved to Framingham, who was going back to Buffalo, New York, to Rochester, actually, I think it was, to pull out of an arrangement with a business associate, because the business associate was pocketing, I think at that point it was about $40,000 his money. And when he arrived for their arranged meeting, he handed over to ICE. The ICE was there, and he said, "That's the man I have trouble with." And I guess that's a pretty dramatic situation.
Vulgar is the word I would use, but go ahead.
Yeah, but it's, that's the way this is also being played in our community. I guess the good news is that the gentleman who was taken in the courthouse, there was a habeas petition put in for him that night. He is still detained at Plymouth, but we have hopes that he will be released to his wife and his 1-month-old. I wanted to say just really quickly about the agreements between HSI that were signed with HSI. I guess it's 3 years ago, roughly now. I won't go through the whole list, but HSI at the time had a very defined mission, which was around drug trafficking, arms trafficking, human trafficking. It was the big criminal stuff. And that kind of thing, I think there is broad agreement, is something that is a threat to all of us. With Trump's executive orders in the first weeks of his administration, changed HSI's brief, changed their mission. And basically, they are authorized to do detentions of any kind, enforcement actions. So they are no longer restricted to this major criminal enforcement. And it's my understanding, and I will apologize if this is already somehow in the works or been done, but it's my understanding that memorandum of that agreement with HSI allowed us to put parameters on our collaboration in other words, we don't have to reframe that agreement to put restrictions on the Framingham Police Department's work with HSI. And so I think it would be eminently reasonable for us to say that all FPD interaction with Homeland Security will be only within the parameters of what HSI was doing at the time we signed that agreement.
I can tell you, sir, that our agreement says that, the policy that bears my name says that, and the case law in Massachusetts says that.
Our task force officer cannot enforce civil immigration, period.
I understand that. I think that this has to do with interaction between police and DHS agents by virtue of, I mean, when the agreement was originally, and I'm not in a position.
When the agreement first happened, their mission was different than what it is today.
Exactly. There are no parameters on their action now, so that to the extent that we have an agreement with them, we are no longer limited.
And if I was ever told, or we were not working narcotics cases, then we would have no need for that. Yeah. I can assure you that I am working narcotic cases. Yeah, not me personally, I'm a little old for that, but.
Diego, I'm trying to understand your nuance. What are you asking?
I'm trying to say that it's my understanding that that original agreement allowed us to have protocols, written protocols for collaboration, that would govern the implementation of that agreement. And that we could have a written protocol that specifically said all collaboration is strictly limited to the parameters of HSI's authority at the time it was signed. That would keep us, I mean, it would make it absolutely clear that we are not, that there cannot be any, there's no agreement for collaboration except for that major criminal stuff. I don't to my knowledge, and I'm happy to, I mean, I would be glad to know that it's already in place, but I think it's very useful to have a written protocol that says it only applies to that stuff that was part of HSI's mission at the time it was signed. That's my suggestion.
Okay. I follow you. We always welcome your comments, Diego. In the far back? I'll get to you, but I want to make sure the new voices get in.
Hi, I'm Maeve Neiswanger. I'm in District 7. I actually wasn't planning to come to this meeting. I had it on Zoom, and truly because of the people in this room, walked from my house in the middle of this meeting so that I could have my voice be heard and also be seen supporting the folks in my community who are out here doing the right thing and fighting the right fight. Again, I'm going to reiterate what I think we all already know to be true, but I want to bring us back here to the main concern, which is I'm here in support of my very immigrant-heavy community. We love Framingham. Framingham is an incredible place. It does not survive or persist without our immigrant community. Neither does our state. Neither does our country. And so I just want to continue to reiterate some of the questions that have been brought up here tonight by some folks here. Thank you, Courtney, for making a really good point recently about laws can change at any time. Now, those laws are targeting a different marginalized community, right? But a question that came up that I don't know that we have the answer to yet, but I think should be imperative for us to get an answer to is, what happens when laws change in the future? So today, we're not sharing flock data with federal agencies, as I've come to understand, but do we have anything written into our Framingham law that says, should the laws change tomorrow, we will not be sharing this information with them? Because, and again, this is kind of coming back to some of the stuff we spoke about earlier in this meeting. Flock is a private company. They're going to do with their data what they want. That's unquestionable. So a separate question I have is, did we consider anybody other than Flock, or have we considered systems in which we own the cameras ourselves and maybe just work with some software, but all the data is stored and taken care of within Framingham's purview? Would love to know that. But most importantly here again, I'm here to reiterate the concerns of the folks who have spoken this evening. We cannot be living in this surveillance state, and we need our neighbors to feel safe. And so I don't even necessarily need a response here, but I just really want to re-raise again. It is not only important for us to be extremely careful with this data we have now, but to protect this data moving forward. For all we know, all of our licenses could be invalidated, or half of this town's, city's licenses could be invalidated tomorrow. And now all of a sudden, does that mean that because of a DHS change in law, we can share all this historical data about all the license plate information that we have stored in the past? Because whether or not we have it for 30 days, this, that, or the other, Flock has our data. I cannot express that enough. That's the way that software works. That's the way that they're making money. So I just want to make it clear, one, we're being careful with our data now, and two, we are governing the way that our data is stored and taken care of in the future.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for walking down. Yes, please. And then we're going to try to, unless someone has something new, we're going to try to wrap this piece up, and we'll come back and visit this conversation when we get further detailed answers.
Thank you, Councilman. This is actually a summary. So it's important to know that the Safe Communities Act has been in Beacon Hill starting back when Obama first was president in our country, and has failed to pass multiple times. It's not until 2 people were killed in Minnesota that it's now receiving its due attention. So with that being said, turning the focus away from the police, Framingham, as one of the 15 top communities and a leader in commercial business in Metro West, should be also a leader in passing legislation that is in concert with what's happening at the state. So I would ask that the council get actively and find out specifically the language that's involved in the PROTECT Act, as well as understanding what is going to be amended by the Senate, which is, from my understanding, is pretty much incorporating most of Governor Healy's executive orders, which would address the 287G and the ability to come onto hospitals, places of worship, courtrooms, et cetera. So, what's my other comment? Diego's comment about how we use information, and that what he was talking about. On this document that Councilman Moore drafted, if you go to the second page, there is reporting of the total number of individuals transferred to ICE custody. And what I'm suggesting here is that's good, but we need a clear delineation of why, for what reason, and how were they transported into ICE custody. Were they arrested or were they not? I mean, now generally, my understanding is they would have to be arrested.
That's the one, we can't transfer. So you either make bail or you don't make bail.
Okay. So anyway.
So, Kate, we're.
Happy to be in this discussion.
The reporting, let me address your general question, your general point. Most of the things that are in the SAFE Act that fall within our community, we dealt with in the Welcoming Community Act 3 years ago. The things that we haven't dealt with in there that are part of this, one of them is relative to schools, and we've talked a little bit about that, but that's the school committee that's gonna have to deal with their properties. We may make a recommendation that we send to them that says, you should address this. Most of the things I see in this, other than reporting, are things that we as leaders and community need to do to be of assistance, but they're not things that are a matter of changing policy or ordinances.
Okay, without calling out my state house representatives here who are very good and representing the immigrants, the original version of the PROTECT Act that is being passed over to the Senate has been watered down considerably, with a lot of concerns in the immigrant grassroots organizations, concerns about some of the language that was eliminated from this bill. So again, Framingham, let's get ahead of that and see that we protect our immigrants here and maybe set an example, sorry guys, to Beacon Hill.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate the sentiment, but that's not the way the authority sort of works. It goes federal, state. We're the little people at the bottom of the conversation.
I'm not saying you can impact the House, but you can lead by example.
Representative Lewis, if you want to.
Councilor, you wanted to pivot, but I had a couple more things to add. There were a couple pieces of legislation that were mentioned, so I just wanted to reference them. Because social media and data being what it is, my Facebook recently reminded me that it was 7 years ago, many of us gathered here to have a conversation with the first mayoral administration and that city council around the Welcoming City Ordinance. And I know we're talking about, the ordinance from 3 years ago, but I would implore you not to wait 2 months, 6 months, or 4 years. The PROTECT Act is now moving on to the Senate. Hopefully it'll be signed into law. Hopefully it'll continue to become stronger. But don't wait. Other communities are looking at concrete things that can be done. I don't think Framingham needs to reinvent the wheel. I remember standing here 7 years ago and saying, I know we want something that is Framingham and feels like Framingham, but I harvested Welcoming City Ordinances from Northampton and Amherst and Salem and brought them to members of the committee back then and said, they more or less all say the same thing, make it feel like Framingham. I think as we look to strengthen it, other communities are doing the same, and I just implore you to do that. As my colleague said, we passed it. It wasn't unanimous, but the great majority of our colleagues passed this bill. It was supported by bipartisan across the spectrum. Some of our most conservative colleagues voted in favor. And so I think as word gets out that Framingham is potentially looking to strengthen its Welcoming City Ordinance, there will be those within our community that are in the minority but have loud voices who may argue against those strengthening. And I would just implore you to listen to everyone, but not allow that loud minority of voices, because had we done that in the legislature, we wouldn't have passed the robust bipartisan bill that we did. As it relates to pieces of legislation, I was texting with colleagues. The bill that they mentioned that was Steve Owens had put forth is now before Ways and Means. And so we'll reach out to the chair of Ways and Means to see how we can support that. The Senate passed a data privacy bill a couple months ago that relates to the sale of corporations and private data. My hope is the House will be taking up a similar bill. Was just texting with the chair of the committee to see if there were provisions and how we could strengthen that. So these issues are all interconnected, and I'm just grateful that we're all going to continue this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. As the person who chaired and drafted the welcoming ordinance, many of the things we did in that from other communities and for ourselves that are in the Draft Protect Act that was put forward, we've already done. So this 287G conversation, which a lot of communities are having this intense dialogue, we're nuancing, talking about a piece of that. We dealt with that 3 years ago. And so where a lot of the issues that are front and center that a lot of communities are dealing with, it's not that we're not dealing with them, we dealt with them. And we're trying to figure out where can we have an impact that isn't about education, community action programs, coordination of effort, et cetera. And we're all ears. We're listening, trying to figure that out. I think we've had a pretty good conversation. I'm going to end with the councilors. Any final sort of comments? And then we'll take this under advisement. We'll come back if we agree on a meeting date. We'll come back on April 27, at which time we'll be able to go through the contract. Tatiana, did you want to say something before we?
I'll be very quick.
Yes. New voices are always welcome as part of this with new thoughts. I'm not trying to. We've been talking about it for a couple hours. We'll talk about it for a couple more if necessary.
So thank you very much. My name is Tatiana Vasconcelos. I'm a resident of District 2, but I'm also the director of Downtown Framingham, Inc. As an immigrant myself, I just want to say that we really appreciate all the support and the frustration and indignation that we saw here tonight. But I wanted to invite everyone here and whoever's listening online to focus on the things that we can do to support. We understand that, there's not much you guys can interfere with, ICE and everything that is going on. So why not we support downtown, local businesses? Mm-hmm. So this is something that I wanted to bring it up because most of the businesses downtown, they are immigrant-owned, and they are suffering. They're being impacted with the whole situation. So just come down here, buy some coffee, try some Brazilian pão de queijo. I promise you're going to love it. If you haven't tried before, you're going to love it. And support the local businesses because they are suffering. And even if you don't want to purchase anything, if you want to come down here and say hello to them and show your friendly face, I think they're gonna love that. So thank you very much. I'm sorry for.
Thank you, Tatiana. And I do my share for pão de queijo and coxinhas. Ms. Souza?
I'm just going to add a very small piece to what Tatiana said. Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree and echo her sentiments, supporting your local businesses, but also I'm gonna say the quiet part out loud. Looking around this room, we all have a certain level of privilege, and using this privilege to be in the spaces in downtown, to either make it less of a target, to be witnesses, to be allies, is super important, and supporting local business, and we have yummy treats. So I just really wanted to underscore what, sorry, this is so weird, like talking to people, but underscore that point of Tatiana's message. Thank you.
That point is well taken, and I think it's not an ordinance, it's not an act. Part of this conversation is for all of us to redouble and to rethink about our efforts, because the personal efforts are probably where we can have the biggest impact. I'm going to go to Ms. Bryant and then Ms. Feeney, and Chief, if you have anything else you want to add, and then we're going to close this part of the conversation off for today. Ms. Bryant, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just that also, I think that, well, as a counselor, I think that I will check, I think that the protection of our churches who can help protect our immigrants, and there should be, and also that we need to help with the efforts and encourage our governor and others and national governors to seek laws that will hold accountable or make them hold ICE accountable and the president accountable for the methods, so that we can have more due process, so that they're not entering spaces that they should not enter, because we're just starting at the state level to call into account all of those. We've heard murmuring, so I think that we can try to do it here, but also there. But it does start too with the public, as Priscilla said about, being witnesses in the downtown area. We all need to support all aspects of this, of protection for our immigrants and humanity, people in general. And also, let's just raise our voices against all the inhumane acts going on, that it does, if we don't speak out, it will continue to happen in Framingham and it will increase. But we have to do it singularly and together.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Ms. Feeney?
Thank you. First off, I just wanted to thank Chief Baker and Deputy Chief Riley. Sorry?
I think they want you to turn your mic on.
My mic is very much on. It's always on. I'll lean into it. So I just wanted to thank the two of you for coming here tonight and really listening and taking the effort and the work, and I know it's never over, to make sure that our residents are protected, whether it's through the data and the work that you and your men and women do every day. So thank you. And I look forward to continuing this conversation about the flock cameras and the data. And I want to thank everybody who is in this room for coming and speaking and sharing your stories. We need to hear more, and we need to hear more people to come out. I spend a lot of time, people think I don't sleep, and I kind of don't sleep, because I think about this a lot and about Framingham. And the question that I want to leave all of us with is, what can Framingham do better? Beyond the flock cameras, but what can we do here locally? I'm wondering about, what do we do about city employee training? What happens if ICE comes to the Memorial Building or any of our municipal properties? Do we have a preparedness plan in our city? I'm a counselor and I don't have the answer to that question. I know other communities do. I'd like us to audit all the data that the city collects and ensure vulnerable communities are protected. I don't know what happens to our data here. And, we could do more about streamlining communications and resource coordination and doing more to communicate that Framingham is a safe place. But I also want to, on the other side, to make sure that our immigrant community, when they're starting small businesses, have full access and easy ability to get permits and to do the things that they need to do municipality to grow their business and start one here. I want to make sure that our kids get to school safely. I also think that Tatiana is correct. Come downtown. I eat a lot of pois de cage, so someone else needs to help me eat it. And so there are things that we can do that are policies and laws, but it's also just the way that we treat one another and showing up downtown. And so I hope that you will all join me with that. And again, these are some of the things that I'm looking at. I'm glad we're continuing this conversation because I want to talk to more people in the city, from HR to IT, about this information. But I really want to hear more of what is it that we can do to become more welcoming here in Framingham, specifically to Framingham. So thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Feeney. And I think much of what you said were things that I was thinking as well. I'll leave this part of the conversation with thank you to the chief, the deputy chief, to the men and women of the department. Thank you for showing up tonight and being part of this conversation. The most important piece of this, as somebody who spends a lot of time thinking about this, talking about neighbors about this, the most important thing we can do is be prepared, to be compassionate, to show how we can be supportive of our neighbors. That's not an ordinance. It's not a law, and I know we're frustrated in trying to figure out how we can deal with that, and that's not minimizing the things we have to deal with. Right. We're going to go through and deal with those things. But the most impactful thing we can do, and that I see in terms of how I see businesses and neighbors protected and respected and supported is by having a plan with their children, by making sure they understand the law in terms of opening and not opening their doors and how they deal with it for their businesses, making sure that we as a community are doing our part within the people we touch and the people that are in our orbit. I know I do a lot of that in terms of making sure people understand rules and regulations. And I wanted to share with you, I wasn't going to share this, but I think it's an interesting case study without being too specific. When the surge was happening in Minnesota, it was also happening in Portland. And I have a very dear friend who has a business there that has many immigrant employees. They spent an awful lot of time making sure they were ready for an I-9 audit, that their employees knew their rules and regulations, that the company had changed their locks and their procedures and their notifications, that their lawyers were on call, they had a protocol in terms of who to call. They were targeted by ICE for 3 weeks. Not one member of their staff missed a day of work, missed a meal, or had any issues. And the precautions they took, none of them were grand. They were all acts of compassion. Local clergy gave folks a ride to and from work in their own cars so they didn't have to use their own cars with their own license plates and their own rules. All of the things they did are the things we do to be good neighbors to each other. I mention that because it's extraordinary with all of the focus and attention that they were able to deal with it. And then finally, ICE went away from Portland for a whole bunch of political and other reasons. I share that because sometimes it isn't the big gestures that make the biggest difference. It's the small ones, and we need to think about Tatiana's words in terms of local businesses. Imagine if your business was down 40%. 40%. Our school system's down 740 kids. Imagine if your neighbor's friends weren't around, what that would mean to you. And how we figure out how we take that extra step for a play date or something else. So we're going to talk about it, but if April 27th works, I would assume for folks that will be when we come back. If you'd like to be notified, you can drop me an email. You can look at our portal or Facebook, and you can figure out where we are. We're going to take a 2-minute break just to let everybody sort of clear out, and if there are folks who want to talk.
Before you break,
Yes.
Councilor, we have a conflict on April 27th. We're engaged in another community meeting that night that we've already promised to be there.
Yes, so we'll try to find another night then. Because we don't want to not have that voice be part of that.
See, fulfilling my obligation.
So we'll figure out how to make that happen.
I just want to I know you're throwing the date on.
I'll coordinate with that. And in fact, we don't have any other business on the agenda tonight anyways, because the other 2 items are continued. The only other thing we had was 27th. Yes.
Point of personal privilege. Tatiana, get my latte and home fries ready. I'll be there.
I'll be waiting for you.
Thank you, Tracy. With that in order, a motion to adjourn will be in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Second. Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Ms. Feeney?
Yes.
And John Stefanini, yes. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you all.